An art direction worthy of turning heads, a competitive one-on-one turn-based tactics arena core, and at the very least, some concerns about being paid to win. This is Phobies in a nutshell. Of these statements, presentation is the most self-explanatory. Any random bloke on the planet would admit, if Phobies is doing anything great, then it's the art. From the namesake Phobies, that are the monsters you'll control, to the battlegrounds that aim to evoke nostalgia about high school locker rooms, kid rooms, or IT classrooms. All of it oozes character by leaning into this doodle-esque style, not taking itself all too seriously, but still communicating nightmares coming to life. I'd love to speak similarly positive about the menus that carry on this style as well. Unfortunately, that's somewhat undermined by a seemingly mobile gaming first approach. The different menu items are scattered across the screen, likely intended for comfort on touchscreens. There's no usable scroll slider anywhere, so instead of a quick swoop to the bottom of lists, you'll just have to keep mouse wheel scrolling. Future V here. Since I've actually found some scrolls, but for some ungodly reason, they're hidden on the left side of the screen instead of the usual right. Not sure where that comes from, but anyway, back to the review. And most obnoxiously, unless I'm even blinder than I ever thought, there's simply no quit button anywhere. Usually this just means you'll have to use your escape key, but in case of a server down situation, there's literally nothing left other than Alt F4. Mind you, neither of these issues are deal breakers, they're just annoyances. And just as the visuals, sounds and music are also high quality, so overall it's a solid A for presentation. As mentioned, core gameplay revolves around battling it out mano a mano in a turn-based tactics arena. Your two win cons are either murderizing all the enemy's phobies or destroying their heart. To assure win con number 1 is possible, each player heads into the game with a set amount of currency to be spent on summoning. Furthermore, that amount is granted slowly over multiple turns, thus the need to consider whether you'd rather bring forth multiple lower tier monsters or save up for something big. Or maybe you don't even want to summon anything so you don't cap yourself, seeing how you can only have 5 monsters out at any given time. Often it's worth keeping that last slot free and leaving yourself the opportunity to counter summon your opponent. This you could do by paying attention to the racial traits some monsters have. For example, mechs are completely immune to poison damage, on the other hand dimensional phobies take extra poison damage. It's a neat little rock-paper-scissors-esque system, though admittedly I'm not currently sure whether it goes all the way around. For example, I don't have a definite answer on how to counter regeneration or lifesteal yet. Maybe I'll get to know down the line. I sure hope that there's a counter to everything, and I have high hopes for that being the case, based on the attention they paid to making the battles fair. Every stat is given in whole, you get to know your and your opponent's health, damage, movement, range and their potential special abilities or racial traits. There's no percentage based critical hit, there's no percentage based dodge chance, everything you can calculate well in advance and make your decisions based on your conclusions. And as for win condition number 2, you could either attempt to brute force your way through, or you could also damage the enemy's heart by holding more control points than your adversary, which is a much needed mechanic to avoid complete stalemates. Add to this tiles that block lines of sight, hazardous or healing tiles, and damage boosters, and you've got yourself a heck of a lot to think about, even without any monsters yet summoned. Speaking of which, let's step back for a minute to what's probably the most contentious aspect of Phobies, the monsters. You see, there are currently 115 total to unlock. 118, you idiot. 118. Of which you start out with barely a handful. The remainder you'll have to either unlock by piling up the different currencies you earn and spending it on packs, or you can ask your mom for her credit card and empty her bank account. To make one thing clear, while I understand the need for a free-to-play game to bring in money, I still don't like this option and I'm fairly concerned it's going to be Phobies' downfall. Instead, what I'd much rather see is granting access to the Phobies to all players and offering a boatload of skins and other cosmetics to pay the bills. Not only would this lower the concerns about being pay to win, but the increased variety and choices would keep the individual players with the game for much longer, at the same time giving them more time to consider cashing out for those sweet and succulent legendary skins. All that being said, while I've often found myself wishing I owned a monster or two that I saw earlier, in roughly 15 hours worth of 50-ish games, I haven't once had the sinking feeling that I'm losing because I don't have X or Y phobie in my collection. I did feel I went into a game without an ounce of a chance, but that was purely a matter of matchmaking, facing off against someone with 2 or even 3 times my account level. Obviously that bloke had way more experience under his belt and way higher level monsters all around. That being said, I've also played similar scenarios where I managed to come out on top. Long story short, as far as the lower leagues are concerned, the game doesn't show any sign of being pay to win. Last but not least, to look at the game modes. Following a quick tutorial, you've got 3 options to look at. A single player challenge mode that starts out easy but ramps up pretty fast, and not only offers fun puzzles, but at the same time introduces the player to strategies or moves they might not even have thought about till that point. As for your sweaty PvP, that comes from either the arena or async. Arena delivers quasi real-time battles, each player has a minute to figure out their moves and submit their turn one after another. Matches here tend to last somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes. And as for asynchronous, also known as async, well, that's a different story entirely. Here, players act whenever they are available to do so and take as much time to figure out their move as needed. Well, within a reasonable time frame of 3 days at most. Once you've figured out your turn, tried every possible scenario and hit the submit button, the turn goes over to your opponent and they can also take their sweet time, contemplating for a previously mentioned up to 3 days. Depending on your hunger to play in the meantime, you can either start multiple other async games, or jump into arena, try challenges, or I don't know, just stand up from the PC or mobile and carry on with the things that need to be done. Right, so if it wasn't already obvious from the time I spent rambling about Phobies, I really enjoy this title. Especially nowadays when Legends of Runeterra decided to start morphing into Hearthstone, the complete lack of any randomness is a welcome sip of fresh air. I really hope this game can manage to keep above the water, prove that it's not a pay-to-win title, if necessary, make the adjustments needed before it's too late, and keep on keeping on for many years to come. I'd really appreciate if I could keep on enjoying taking my turns once or twice a day, working my ass off for those satisfying wins. Hell, I'd even be curious to see how things would go in a tournament setting, watching the cream of the crop battle it out. If you enjoyed what you saw, we'd greatly appreciate if you pleased the machine gods by liking our video. If you'd like to come along for the next one, don't hesitate to subscribe. Any and all recommendations are welcome in the comment section. Don't let the bedbugs bite, and we'll see you again soon.